This is the intricate, branching maze of waterways where the Ganges and Brahmaputra rivers fracture before hitting the Bay of Bengal. It is a volatile, shifting landscape, and in the 7th century, it became the stage for total political collapse. In the year 625 CE, the death of King Shashanka shattered the fragile order in Bengal. The region plummeted into a violent power vacuum, leaving localized chieftains fighting over the remains of his kingdom. Historical texts describe the following century of bloodshed as Matsyanyaya, the law of the fishes. Just as a massive fish silently devours a smaller one in murky waters, strong regional warlords consumed the weak. There was absolutely zero higher authority to enforce the law or stop the violence. 100 years of this unrelenting warfare pushed the surviving elite to their absolute limit. Facing total mutual destruction, the remaining warlords were forced into a political solution that had never been attempted in this part of the world. Around 750 CE, the rival chieftains called a truce and gathered in a historic council. Setting aside generations of bloodshed, they elected a common warrior named Gopala to rule over them as their singular overlord. Later Tibetan texts would mythologize this moment. They claimed the region was cursed by a Naga queen who devoured every newly elected king on his wedding night until Gopala bravely slayed her. It is a dramatic tale designed to wrap a practical political maneuver in the veil of divine heroism. The reality was far more grounded. Gopala had no royal blood. Contemporary sources suggest he came from a lower caste. The chieftains didn't choose a god, they chose a highly competent general who could actually enforce the peace. Upon his election, Gopala adopted a new surname for his lineage, Pala. In Sanskrit, it translates simply to protector, a literal description of the job the desperate chieftains hired him to do. Conquerors claiming divine right did not build this empire. Warlords forged it through a desperate democratic social contract to survive. Gopala successfully stabilized Bengal, but his son and successor, Dharmapala, had a very different vision. Once the internal bleeding stopped, he aimed the region's combined military might outward. Dharmapala plunged his forces into the Tripartite Struggle. This was a massive, multi-generational war for control of northern India, pitting the Palas in the east against two other superpowers, the Pratiharas to the west and the Rashtrakutas to the south. Powered by a highly trained elephant cavalry, Dharmapala pushed through enemy lines. He pushed the borders of his empire relentlessly westward, stretching Pala control all the way to modern-day Afghanistan. By surviving the initial crucible of civil war, a localized defensive alliance had rapidly mutated into an aggressive, continental juggernaut. The military peak arrived with the third king, Devapala. He secured total dominance over the Bay of Bengal, establishing lucrative maritime trade and diplomatic ties as far away as the Sailendra kings of Java. The true legacy of the Palas, however, was built with patronage. They were the last major imperial power in India to pour their resources into Mahayana and Tantric Buddhism. This aerial view shows the sprawling rectangular brick foundations of Nalanda University. The Palas funneled enormous wealth into this ancient center of learning, protecting and expanding its operations so thousands of students could study free of cost. They also commissioned colossal new architecture. These brick ruins belong to Somapura Mahavihara, a massive monastic complex that drew scholars from across the continent. Inside these massive walls, the highly distinct Pala school of sculptural art flourished. Monks painstakingly copied esoteric tantric teachings onto ancient palm leaf manuscripts like these, and the earliest recorded works of the Bengali language were finally born. The Palas used their vast wealth to subsidize the export of this precious knowledge. They transformed a territory once completely defined by warlord anarchy into the intellectual epicenter of the Eastern world. Following Devapala's death, a string of weak successors struggled to maintain control. Internal rebellions fractured the state, and rival empires carved away the Pala's core territories. The dynasty saw a brief, unexpected revival in 988 CE under Mahipala I. Through sheer military ingenuity, he managed to claw back the lost northern and eastern provinces. Yet Mahipala made a fatal geopolitical calculation. As new invaders began pouring into the Indian subcontinent from the west, local Hindu kings attempted to form a massive defensive coalition. Mahipala, driven by a strict and uncompromising devotion to Buddhism, flatly refused to join them. By prioritizing religious identity over a pragmatic military alliance, the Pala Empire found itself entirely isolated as the political realities of the subcontinent shifted around them. The exhausted empire finally collapsed in the 12th century, violently overthrown and replaced by the Hindu Sena dynasty. The political borders vanished from the map, but the original mandate given to Gopala, to act as a protector, survived in an unexpected way. Fleeing Pala monks, including legendary figures like Atisha, took their texts, their art, and their teachings with them. They carried this knowledge across the treacherous, snow-capped passes of the Himalayas into Tibet, and over the ocean into Southeast Asia. The physical Pala Empire was erased from Indian geography, yet the cultural DNA they carefully incubated for 4 centuries became the permanent spiritual bedrock for much of modern Asia. If you enjoyed this dive into the Pala dynasty, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to AKHARA Study, and share this video with a fellow history fan. Thanks for watching.